In 1871, when the Franco-Prussian War ended and France was forced to cede Alsace to the newly unified German Empire, tens of thousands of Alsatians made a choice. Rather than become German subjects, they crossed the new border and resettled in France. Many of them came to the Territoire de Belfort, a small strip of land that had been part of the old Alsace but was specifically retained by France after the war, largely because of the heroic resistance of its garrison. And those Alsatian refugees brought with them their language, their customs, their recipes, and their seasonal food traditions, including a small golden man-shaped brioche that in Alsace was called the Mannele or the Mannala, and that in the Territoire de Belfort became known as the Jeanbonhomme. And it is still made here, and only here, every year, from the feast of Saint Nicolas on the 6th of December through to Christmas. A bread that carries the memory of a war, a displacement, and a community that chose France over the German Empire and brought their food with them when they came. This is Fabulously Delicious, the French Food Podcast. Welcome back to the Food Tour de France. I'm your host, Andrew Pryor. Today, the Tour de France finishes in Belfort, the Lion City, the gateway between Alsace and Franche-Comté, the city whose garrison held out for 103 days against the Prussian siege in 1870 and 1871, and whose resistance directly led to the Territoire de Belfort remaining French when everything around it was annexed. Today, we are talking about the food that tells that story most directly. The Jeanbonhomme is a small brioche, a rich, buttery, slightly sweet bread dough, shaped by hand or by a mold into the form of a small man, glazed with egg before baking until deeply golden and eaten warm or at room temperature, ideally with a cup of hot chocolate or a warm milk. It is the Territoire de Belfort's name for what Alsatians call the Mannele in the Bahrein and the Mannala in the Mulhouse area. Different names for the same fundamental identical thing, a man-shaped enriched bread made in the weeks before Christmas, associated with the feast of Saint Nicolas and the beginning of Advent. The recipe is a classic enriched bread dough: flour, sugar, salt, milk, eggs, butter, and baker's yeast. The dough is made, left to rise for an hour and a half, and then shaped into figures, either by hand, which is the tradition and gives each bonhomme its own slightly imperfect handmade character, or with a specific cutter or mold for a more uniformed result. A second rest of 30 minutes allows the gluten to relax and the yeast to continue its work. And then a wash of egg yolk beaten with a little water or milk, which gives this finished Jeanbonhomme its characteristic deep golden colour. Into the oven at 180 degrees for around 15 minutes. The result is a soft, slightly sweet, fragrant with butter and yeast, with a goldening exterior that gives slightly under pressure and a pillowy interior that tears cleanly and satisfyingly. Eaten on the day, it's one of those things that is difficult to stop at just one. Eaten the following day, it's slightly firmer, better toasted, some argue, better still with jam. Some versions include chocolate chips pressed into the dough, a popular variation, particularly with kids, where the chips marked the eyes and buttons of the bonhomme before it goes into the oven and melt into pools of chocolate as it bakes. Others are decorated after baking with simple icing or coloured sugar, but the traditional versions are plain, just the dough, the butter, the glaze and the heat. The connection to Saint Nicolas is the key to understanding what this bread means in the Territoire de Belfort. The feast of Saint Nicolas on the 6th of December is the beginning of the Christmas season in this corner of France, a tradition that is strongly Alsatian and Lorraine in character, and that distinguishes the northeast of France from the rest of the country, where Christmas celebrations tend to centre exclusively on the 25th. In Alsace and in the Territoire de Belfort, Saint Nicolas arrives first, bringing gifts for the good kids, accompanied by his terrifying counterpart, Pierre Fouettard, who threatens the naughty ones. Bakeries fill with Jeanbonhommes for the feast day, and keep making them through to Christmas. In theory, at least. In practice, some bakers start, a little earlier and continue a little later, because demand, it rarely drops away. What makes the Jeanbonhomme specifically a Territoire de Belfort food rather than an Alsatian food that happens to be made in Belfort, well, is the history. The Jeanbonhomme is found almost exclusively in the Territoire de Belfort and in the north of the region. And it was almost certainly brought here by the Alsatians who resettled in the territory after the annexation in 1871. The Territoire de Belfort was historically part of Alsace. It was one piece of an old Alsatian territory that France insisted on retaining in the peace negotiations because of the symbolic importance of its resistance. And a significant proportion of its population was of direct Alsatian origin. They brought their Mannele with them and called it by a French name that was entirely their own, Jeanbonhomme, the good fellow, the little man. And it became specific to this territory in a way that nothing in Alsace itself could replicate. The Territoire de Belfort is one of the smallest administrative departments in France. It only has around 60,000 people living there. But its food culture sits at the intersection of Franche-Comtoise and Alsatian traditions in a way that is unique. The toutèche, a potato cake associated with the Belfort, the cuisine, a brioche with dried fruit, and the canton of Grumage. Today, the tour finishes in Belfort, the Lion of Belfort, the giant sandstone lion carved by Frederic Bartholdi, the sculpture of the Statue of Liberty to commemorate the resistance of 1870, watches over the city from the rock above the old town. And in the bakeries of the city, on the 6th of December, the Jeanbonhommes will be golden and warm and waiting. Find one, eat it the day it's made, with hot chocolate perhaps, if you can manage it. And remember that you are eating a bread that arrived here because a community chose to be French. That's the Jeanbonhomme. The next stage of the food tour de France will be another stage, another story. So bon appétit et à très bientôt.